Tapping in.
Are we live?
Yo. The Kids official sliding on the instrumental. Nordic combos, twist your mental like forbidden jitsus. My click's initial.
Gotta love that transition.
That theme always gets me. I'm always like just getting greasy with it right when it drops. That's beautiful. Even wanting more.
Yeah, man. It's definitely a cool thing to be able to have part of the show, because we worked really hard in order to try and fit ourselves into it, right? Like there's one thing about just like having a conversation, but like including different elements that showcase who we are, which is just, at the end of the day, these young Black dudes who love hip hop, who love reading, and who love just like sharing information. And I feel like that captures it quite well.
Absolutely. And you know what I'm saying? From everything, the music, the artwork, just the style of it. You know, I think, matter of fact, we need to get another Cooler Than Black emojis joint, switch up the wallpaper at a certain point. We coming to the end of the year. Maybe we could switch it up for the new year. I don't know. New things coming soon, man.
Most definitely. Speaking of art, this week there was Art Basel in Miami, right? Where all the art the art lovers and the art experts flock to. Now, is that a type of space that you would find yourself into? Because like I, for one, I definitely know that I'm an Art Basel Miami type of dude. So I'm you know what I mean? That is a given. Would you go?
Of course. I mean, like, I'm not saying that I'm a Art Basel aficionado, right? But I'm saying that that's definitely a space that I would love to explore. My gallery perusal experience currently consists of just checking out the neighborhood joints. There's actually a Black owned art gallery on like 48th and Cottage here in the city in Bronzeville, right down the street from this little winery, this Bronzeville winery. So like that's the Black community in Chicago on the South Side. And just to see those type of spots and opportunities pop up, I've been trying to take advantage of those. But a whole like festival, a whole like gathering for
Yeah,
baseball,
for sure.
for sure. I would love that.
But the issue now is that a lot of times it gets diluted, right? You have a lot of people that eventually just come up and they show up for the pictures of it, the baddies.
It already got
baddies
South by Southwested. It got South by Southwested already, huh?
That's definitely got South by Southwested. There are definitely Art Basel groupies for sure.
Dang. Oh, but look at, I'm checking out the comments. Chills was saying that Westside Gunn had a spade at Art Basel. That's ill. That's mad ill. So I guess that's the interesting dynamic, especially that hip hop always plays with, right? Where it's like something gets cool and gets recognition and then gets super saturated, right? Now everybody's in the space, which means that somebody who's dope, who deserves the opportunity, like Westside Gunn, gets the look. But it also means that you got a lot of people that are standing in front of Westside Gunn's thing with the selfie stick like this, and that's not the culture that he made it for. So it is an interesting dynamic, you know.
For sure. But the relationship between art and hip hop has always been there. Like it's always been close for a long time. Even like taking it back to the foundation of what hip hop is, which is graffiti. That is literal art, right? And so like that was the renaissance of hip hop, the holy trinity as they call it, which was breakdancing, hip hop, graffiti, and beatboxing, rapping, right? That type of thing. These comments is cute.
Let's have an honest moment about graffiti though, man. How deep did you go in the graffiti hole? Because I know we all, like, those of us who fell in love with hip hop, we all thought about the graffiti to a certain extent. How far did you take it? Was you scribbling in mad notebooks?
That's just the experience of growing up. I definitely wrote an S with 6 lines, 3 at the top, 3 at the bottom, and connected them impeccably. I can still do that now if you want me to get down to it, you know. Yeah. But I'd say that's as far as graffitiing went for me. Funny enough, the last time I was robbed was on my way to do my first graffiti tag. So, you know, already my relationship with it is quite poor.
Yeah, dude. Our relationship with hood shit is very interesting, where you said this the last time I was robbed, just how many like multiple iterations that implies, but also the casualness with it. It was like the last time I was robbed was and like the lack of salt as well. It was just like, yeah, it's a very
It's a hood
But
experience for sure.
it's a dynamic podcast, man. We've been through some things for sure.
Hey man, listen, but speaking off that tip of getting robbed and just violence, right? A conversation that was brought forward to us by a friend of the show was around hip hop being bad for your mental health, right? And this was off of a conversation where we were just kind of discussing hip hop, and I think we mentioned Nipsey, and we're like, damn, RIP. Then we mentioned Dolph shortly after that. We're like, damn, RIP. It was like, damn, man, hip hop is really bad for your mental health. Now, I thought that was quite a profound statement, especially considering like the type of trauma that we actually have to go through loving this hip hop thing. Like, we're deep in it, and we're all like such fans of it. But there's no mistaking the fact that the feeling we get when what has become a norm happens in hip hop, we're almost desensitized to it.
I feel you, but I don't think it's fair to blame hip hop for us to have to deal with that loss, right? Like, we should be able to love artists, we should be able to love art, right? And it's always tragic when an artist's life gets cut when anybody's life, first of all, when a person's life gets cut short, especially in a violent way. But like, we deal with that. So hip hop oftentimes is gun violence, and I know for us as that's something we try to address in our work. We try to give kids opportunities. That hits especially hard, right? But you look at rock and roll, you look at guys like Kurt Cobain, you look at some of the other artists we've seen. You look at even Amy Winehouse, rest in peace to like these amazing souls, But we lose artists in a variety of ways, man. That life, that attention. So I don't think it's fair to specifically blame hip hop, and I don't think because hip hop artists, rappers tend to die in unfortunate circumstances, I don't think it's fair to say that hip hop is bad for your mental health.
Yeah, but it is quite disconcerting for sure. Like, the feeling that I got when Dolph passed, it was almost the same feeling I get when a school shooting happens, right? Which is, damn, this is sad, and it's truly like lives are lost, and I empathize. Their children, the system is messed up, the whole range of emotions, but still it doesn't jerk to like the deep core of the sadness. Like, for instance, when we first started hearing of artists die, and I hear a lot of people that grew up around the Biggie and Pac era, that's what they relate this type of feeling in hip hop to as well.
That's real. And that's like a very interesting parallel that you just drew there, right? Like, we see this violence in the news, and we see this violence. It sucks when that violence leaks over into our art, the stuff that we go to get away from that and enjoy, right? Like, I think when we were even saying like rest in peace to Dolph, we had this conversation about that's the music I listen to when I'm in my most happiest, my most like not concerned about whatever's going on in the world, and to have this extra layer of heaviness and weight on it now does suck. So I feel what you're saying, but I think that no, go ahead.
But and we spoke about this last week, right? There's hip hop means so much to so many of us. Like, this is not just music to us. This is a friend when you need it. This is fuel when you're depleted. Like, this is a source of so much meaningful energy to us on a daily basis. How many times do we pick up the phone up and be like, bro, thank God for hip hop? That's what we call each other, to thank to pray together to the hip hop gods and say, thank you, God, for this music source.
But that's why, like, yeah, enough. When you hit me up and was saying like, yo, the topic, hip hop is bad for your mental health, I was kind of like, get out of here. You know what I'm saying? Because as a person that is like, has been listening to hip hop, invested in hip hop for such a long time, there have been moments where all I had was hip hop, or all that kept me from doing something I shouldn't have been doing was hip hop, or all that, allowed me to express emotions that I didn't have. I say it on the podcast a bunch of times, man. Like, one of the deepest things, the truest things about books and music to me, especially lyrical music, is like, sometimes when you can't find the words to express your experience, someone else has found them for you. And when you can find that and have that laid out for you, that is such a release, man. That is such a important connection. And that has maintained my positive mental health in so many ways, right? Hip hop is a tool for that as well.
That's dope. I love how you connect those two things, right? Which is essentially like what hip hop can be from a positive, not just hip hop, but like just how you can engage with the positive elements of things.
So check this out, right? Because where like, because even when you first mentioned it, what I really thought what you were mentioning, right? And yeah, when so I'm checking out the comments again, and Chills was saying, what about the impressionable youth though? And that's kind of where I'm going with it too, right? The little peep generation. So there's this thing where you can criticize hip hop if you want to take the angle of, right, like its proximity to violence, right? And also its proximity to drug culture, right? I think the immediate answer to that is kind of like there's the art imitate life and life imitate art question, right? Kids are rapping around about what they see. I'm mad at myself for not remembering who said this. I think it was like an old school MC. I think it was like Grandmaster Flash, but he was saying, it wasn't Grandmaster Flash, man. But it was
It's Dougie Fresh.
But it was somebody from the golden era, and the quote was, he was saying, if you want me to rap about flowers and things that are happy, then why don't you come plant some flowers in my neighborhood? Because that's not what I see, right? So if people are rapping about what they see, then I think there's a broader context we can have about what are the root causes of both that content in music and the violence, because the root cause of the violence is not the music.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. It doesn't start at the music, essentially, right? The music is then what becomes the reality that we get to experience about the situation behind it. But then it makes me ask myself, right, especially off the back of how the proximity of hip hop to drugs and to violence, what responsibility do we have as let's say, I almost want to use the word worshippers of hip hop, bro, because like we ingest it on like on a religious, almost to a religious extent, right? Like as the congregants of hip hop, what responsibility do we have to take care of it when it's in a place of like this,
so check
where
this
addiction
out, right?
and violence are rife?
Our responsibility, right, as hip hop connoisseurs or whatever, however you want to call it, paint it, right? And man, the comment section is crazy, man. We love this engagement, man. He's checking out the quote for us. Chills is the man, homie. Shout out to Big Chills, man. So what we have to do, right, as the listeners, right, is to understand our engagement with it, right? On the appreciation level, on what it does for us, appreciating the things that I was just alluding to in terms of what it's done for me and my mental health. And that means that it's important to pay your artists. So whatever, make sure that's why, whether you're buying vinyls, whether you're buying merch, whether you're going to shows, whether you're just making sure that you're using your Spotify subscription and not illegally downloading music for the artists that are really supporting you, like that and that you want to support back, like that you really fuck with their music. That's important, right? But then there's this whole other aspect where, what is your relationship to the music? So when I listen to music, we talk about the relationship to violence and drugs, right? As a young kid, I can't lie. When what I wanted to do for my situation was sell a little weed, it felt good to hear that repeated in the music.
Yo, did you just incriminate yourself on this podcast? Did you?
Weed is legal, nigga, in Chicago.
Okay, go ahead, brother. My bad.
So
I'm old habits die hard.
But why would you emphasize the incrimination? Like, why would you?
My bad, dude. Listen, this is a close conversation. It's just family.
But anyway, let's check this out, right? Check this out. So in a position, if I'm deciding to sell a little weed, right? To hear that reflected in the music feels really good, right? But on the flip side of that, I got to understand the reasons why I'm doing that. I got to understand that there's a home situation. I'm not selling weed just because I heard it in a song and that's what I want to do, right? There's a home situation. There's a desire to provide. There's a desire to have. There's a desire for materialistic things. There's a desire for the social clout that creates in your social network, right? My responsibility, maybe that I'm too young to understand, parental advisory, parents, what are your kids listening to, right? As a teenager, is to be like, what is my relationship to this music, and why does it feel so good to hear that represented, and how far am I going to allow that good feeling to push me, right?
Yeah.
Now that gets different. The stakes get much, much higher when we start talking about gun violence, but there's a very distinct point I want to make about the perpetration of gun violence and the feelings that are connected to it in the music. But I want to open it. I just said a lot of things. I want you to be able to respond.
I mean, the main point that you made that I appreciate, right, is alluding to the deeper root causes that come behind what we end up seeing being the art manifesting itself, right? Which in this case would be hip hop, and we see it through the music, through even the characters that are within that universe, right? Like they all are reflections of where they come from. And so maybe if we can appreciate this art form as a reflection of the reality of the people that come from it, as opposed to judging the people that are within it as the front runners of those issues or whatever the case may be, cut these guys a little bit of slack. But still, man, I still wonder if there's more to be done, because drug addiction is rife. Drug addiction is rife, dude. It's such an issue. It's such an issue. Violence is high. The culture of instant gratification via social media is really polluted. Just the way that people engage with each other, you know what I mean? And it's increasingly becoming the issues that we are exposing ourselves to are becoming too big for us to be able to handle them on our own. They would almost need outside intervention. Like our addiction to this, you would almost have to go somewhere. You'd have to go away to stop our addiction to that.
Yeah. Well, the expectation is that you have it now, right? Like everybody expects you to be accessible through your phone. But what you said about social media and instant gratification is so important to this whole conversation, right? Because so peep this, right? When I listen to music, I can listen to music that has themes that are responding to a violent environment that I might not necessarily, not have that when I listen to it, not at every point in my life have I been faced with that environment, right? But it fits that in my head when I'm listening to hip hop, when I'm listening to overcoming your opposition, right? When I'm listening to thinking and strategizing about the different ways that I want to maneuver, both as a leader of the people that I'm with, but also as a man in the world. That is how I contextualize hip hop, right? And that's reflected in the hip hop that I lift up the most when I'm talking about Lupe Fiasco, Kendrick, Royce the 5'9". When I'm talking about these artists that I listen to, and I really, really big up Jay-Z, right? Talib Kweli, right? Like there's Mos Def. There's a, and I'm not trying to just big up the lyrical miracle rappers, but I'm saying those are the people, and even the Meek Mills, the Kevin Gates, right? Like the people whose persona, the people whose attitudes and at least reflection upon life and their circumstances encourages me to do the same. But it doesn't have to mirror their exact. I don't have to be hurting people. I can be overcoming the things that are obstacles in my way, right?
Yeah.
I have haters. They don't have to be gang members, right? They can be a part of a different whatever, affiliated with something else, the competition in whatever sense, and I can contextualize that in my brain. That's my responsibility as the listener, is to know what is that context in my head, and not always just be passively listening, because we do need to think about and digest the content that we put into ourselves.
Definitely.